Dr. McCoy spilled acid on a table a year ago, and the spot is still there. It is far easier for civilized men to behave like barbarians than for barbarians to behave like civilized men. And Lieutenant Marlena Moreau was just assigned last week. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton and Walter Koenig.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Original Series, Season 2, Episode 4, Mirror, Mirror, written by Jerome Bixby. That's a good name. Directed by Mark Daniels. This was October 6th, 1967. Where were you? Also, very special thanks to our friend Ryan Galloway up in Canada, in frosty Canada, for sponsoring this episode. Thank you very much, Ryan Galloway. We miss you, dude. How you guys doing today?
Speaking of laundering, there's a moment that's missing that we shot.
No way.
Yeah.
In this episode?
Yeah.
Well, let's just get into that. I don't know how we were speaking of laundering, but let's get into it.
Didn't you say laundering? I thought you said he laundered this episode.
Oh, sponsored. Sponsored. No, I was thinking about laundering, though.
Cirroc, what did he say? Did he say sponsoring?
I think he said sponsoring, yeah. But I'm
God, you guys all stick together, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, you youngsters.
Hey, wait a minute.
Firecrackers.
No, tell me what happened. There's a scene missing in this episode, you said?
There's a moment that's missing.
A moment.
When Chekov steps out of the elevator behind Kirk, the good Kirk, but the bad Chekov. We never do see the good Chekov in this episode, by the way. He pulls his phaser, and that's not a dirty expression in this case.
Should be.
And he's hit, he's punched. And I have some commentary about the choreography on the fights in this episode. But in any case, he and Chekov collapses, and what's missing is Kirk picks him up and holds him in his arms, and that's not there. You don't go back to Chekov when before the scene ends, and Kirk is holding him and saying something about him. So I just thought that's an extraordinarily important and significant and profound moment. And how could we edited it out?
I expected to see more Chekov after that booth. In fact, the agonizer booth. I thought that there was going to be something there. And I was like, did I just imagine it? But I guess I did, because there was not. I felt like there should be some kind of closure to that little story of what's going on.
The closure is Kirk turns later on in the episode, and from the side of his mouth says, take Chekov out of the agonizing booth. He says something along those lines.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes. Yeah, which I thought was good. But yeah, I didn't realize that scene was missing. And I probably would guess that the reason they would take it out is because it would make... I don't know if they did it for time or if they did it for how they wanted to portray Kirk making decisions in that moment, if his hands were full holding Chekov. I think they wanted to end on that fight scene a little bit more that he had with the other guy who was trying to move up in ranks. But that's interesting that it wasn't in there.
Yeah, well, my guess is it was a place to put another commercial. That somewhere along the line they decided that it would behoove them to have more.
But Walter, aside from the missing scene, what was your overall take on the episode itself? How did you feel watching this episode?
I liked it. I thought it was interestingly done. I thought there was some complications. There were stuff going on. I think our laugh-in actor, it was interesting to see him. He did some work after Laughing. I can't think of his name. Do you know his name?
Mm-mm.
Oh, but I remember that show, Laughing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was that? Oh, Lieutenant Kyle. Is that who we're talking about?
No.
John Winston.
No. No. The leader on the other planet, who we saw in the first scene, and he's
Oh,
saying,
The Hulk Council.
Vic Perrin.
No.
Vic Perrin. That was
No, that
Tharn.
wasn't Vic. No, that wasn't Vic Perrin. He had another name, and I don't remember what it is. Maybe one of your fans would be able to tell you.
Yeah, there was
But
also Garth
he played
Pillsbury.
he played a kind of not mincing, but kind of a gentle, ethereal kind of leader, and said you could take the weapon, the crystals from us, if you wanted to. And Kirk says, but we're not going to do it, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
From the Halkin Council, one of those.
Yeah, I thought that's what it said. Tharn was his name, but I could be wrong on that. So
if you said the right name, I would know it. That's where I am at this stage in my life.
Well, this is a very famous episode. This one, a lot of these episodes, you know, Cirroc and I, we go, this is where it all started. The whole, it's called the Mirror Universe because in the Mirror episode, they created this alternate universe. And now they just always forever call it the Mirror Universe.
Right.
And like Next Generation doesn't cover it. Deep Space Nine does very well and quite a bit. Enterprise has a really good Mirror Universe episode, tons of fun. Discovery goes into the Mirror Universe. I think that might be it, but quite a bit. I feel like Strange New Worlds has got to do it at some point, probably in this third season, but this really opened up a lot, you know, and everybody makes jokes about like, you know, Janeway in the Mirror Universe would have a goatee like Spock or things like that. People have their fun with it, but it's created like a completely different subset of Star Trek stories that everybody loves. But Walter, can you tell us, what do you remember? I guess we should start with this. What do you remember about filming this? Do you remember there was a buzz about it? Was it just kind of another day? Did you think it was interesting? Were people excited to be, you know, tougher and different outfits?
Well, initially, Shatner had demanded that two of his daughters be in the episode. And one of his dogs, you know, he had those big dogs.
No way. You gotta. I was starting to write this stuff down. I'm like, the dogs. You gotta be careful with Walter. He can set you up.
His parrot.
But I mean, this was a bigger like role for you so far that I can see in these first few episodes. Like, you're given a lot more to do. It looks like you have more lines and more on-screen time for me. That's what I feel, at least.
Really? I didn't feel that way. I thought this was a better episode for George, for Sulu.
True.
It was.
They came in close on him. He got to be a little on the bad side. I thought and he performed it well. So I was pleased for him on that score. By the way, I'm not sure you got the thing straight about the stain on the table. I think it was the other way around, that the stain was gone because it wasn't the same table.
I thought it was the same. Cirroc? Do you remember?
The table itself?
Yeah, well, I thought that he said everything's the same but different. Like, for example, this stain of acid is here from a year ago. It's still there. So that was kind of like their touchstone, saying, look, we're still kind of in the same ship. Everything's just a little bit different within it. But maybe I misinterpreted that.
You know, we spoke yesterday, and I told you I was having problems understanding what was going on. So it's conceivable.
Well, it's because you were really drunk, by the way. And it was 2 in the morning when you called him.
He wasn't drunk.
So here we go. There we go. You too. I gotta. Let me break it. Let me break it to you up. No, but so I took it the same way you took it, Ryan. I thought he was saying the way, that this stain was there, so that's this. There is a similarity between these two universes, but
two guys against one.
Well, no, but that became irrelevant to me as the story moved on, because I didn't really care about the specifics. I kind of suspended belief and just say, okay, these guys are not where they're supposed to be because they're clearly in some kind of. I would have liked more explanation on what transpired in order for that universe to be created, because it looked like the way they were writing that it was as if Germany had won in the World War II, for example, that was the future that would have been the outcome. That's what I took from it, because they kind of used the Nazi salute to some degree.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, so I thought, yeah, this whole like chest out, hand out motion. So I thought what my mind was telling me was, oh, this is the future that would have been constructed in a reality in which Germany had won in World War II. They didn't explain what it was that caused this alternate version, but that was my assumption. I don't know, what were you guys thinking?
Well, I think that was there. I mean, I don't know if I thought about it, but I certainly acknowledge the salute. The salute absolutely said Heil Hitler to me. I thought this. What I liked about it is that yes, the story was about being in an opposing universe, but they also had a plot going on with the people from this other planet and the lithium crystals, and whether we were going to help them or whether we were going to attack them. I thought that was interesting. That kept us in the Star Trek mode, kept us, in that world, and it was an interesting complication. I thought it just helped promote the story.
Yeah, you know what I liked about it too, and this is just kind of like the overarching situation, was that evil Spock was actually pretty good.
Yeah,
that's to me, that was kind of the twist that I would not have expected, which is, you think if Kirk is coming into this world of, bad people or tough people or hard-edged people, that he wouldn't, the main person there wouldn't be on his side, but Spock kind of was. And I thought that was a good choice, because I would have just assumed that, it's the 4 of them basically against all the bad people and they have to escape and all that. I would not have expected one of the bad people to, kind of be on their side or at least be willing to listen. But then it left them with the possibility that Spock will now start things in a better direction.
Well, it was kind of a little bit of a cheat. Spock wasn't a whole lot different than he was in the ordinary universe, except for, and this is the evil, was the beard and mustache. Okay, now we've given him the bad thing, and now let's let him be Spock. And basically, I mean, he did have some arguments to the effect of we got to destroy these people, but if it wasn't for the beard, I would say this. I would somehow accept that this is the regular Spock, because of his logic, because of his empathy, because of his general demeanor.
Mm-hmm.
I actually believe that one of my favorite lines was when Kirk says, you're a man of integrity in both universes, Mr. Spock. I thought that rang true to me. And back to what you were saying, Walter, about some of the themes that ran through this episode, I thought the biggest theme that I liked, the takeaway that I liked, was these Hulkin people, the line that was written was, "We're willing to die as a race to preserve what we are." So it was like, you're dying to preserve. You're not going to compromise. You know what I mean? It's
That's
like,
funny. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, but
yeah,
that's
it's
a good
crazy.
message.
Yeah.
That's the message, though. It's like, we won't be who we are if we compromise our morality. And I thought that was just like, that is a great a message to, being principled and sticking to your values.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So here's the thing with, I wanted to just go back to Spock real quick. And Walter, when you're saying he pretty much just acted like Spock, right? And I agree with that. But I was thinking maybe it's just because, look, these people are still the same people. They're just under different circumstances, right? And Vulcans are a little bit more rigid to where their environment won't change them or influence them as much as humans might. So, for example, you get the same human and you put him in a utopia, he'll act like a nice human, but still a human. You put him in this shit situation and he'll be a little more barbaric, but he'll still, he'll be influenced by his surroundings more, right? Whereas a Vulcan is much more rigid in their ways. So you put a Vulcan in a utopia, he'll still be a kind of Vulcan-y, he'll still be logical, he'll still kind of stick to his guns and not really get overly emotional in a positive direction. And then you put him in this mirror universe where people are a lot worse, theoretically, he's also not going to be swayed in that direction as much. So that's what I was thinking, he's more stable in who Vulcans are more stable in who they are. They're very stubborn, but they're very set in their ways, and they're just less influenced by their environment, is what I would think.
I would love to have sat in on the story conferences with Leonard there, and how much input he had. And
he was there. He would be part of these conversations.
I think he would. The supporting actors were never invited to those things, but I'm sure that they sit down conversations, and Leonard made points, about how consistent he should be, how different he should be. I think he played it very well. I think it helped that he had the beard, because it said evil, despite the fact that he wasn't. But it helped us bridge the gap, and accept the fact that this was a different person. In any case, I just thought my guess is there was a lot of discussion beforehand, and that there was discussion about the uniforms and things that are not as subtle as some of the other things. For example, when I saw the bridge for the first time, and I saw Sulu in the red uniform and Chekov in the green uniform, I said, wait, how does this work? Mm-hmm. And then I realized Sulu's head of security, and he's going to be next in line. So his position is being reflected in the color of his uniform. I don't know if we were ever told that red was next in line, but it was certainly not what our Sulu had worn. And why was Chekov in the green? I mean, what significance did that have? Was that mean he was a navigator? Oh, and by the way, our positions were reversed. Mm-hmm. I was at what would be the helm, and Sulu was what would be at the navigator. But I don't think that was their intention. I just think that in terms of just changing the look and giving you the sense that we are in a different, universe, they put us in the opposite chairs. I don't know. That's the way I interpreted it.
Can we back up a little bit real quick? Because you said something a couple times that was very interesting. And I'm wondering if Cirroc's ears perked up when you said that. And what you said was green uniform. instead of gold or yellow. And legend has it, I don't know much about that. I don't know much about anything before 1988, maybe. But legend has it, those were actually green, but when it was on black and white TV, that you couldn't tell. And then when it had been colorized, it was something to do with the colorization, made it look gold. And then Kirk does end up wearing an actual green uniform once, but apparently you had always worn green before. Can you shed a little light on that?
Well, yeah, this is all new to me.
Well, were you guys wearing green uniforms or gold uniforms?
That's what I saw on the screen when I was watching it. It sounds like a cop out from me, but maybe they were gold. But when I was watching it yesterday, it was green.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when you were on set, you don't remember it being green? What color was it when you were wearing it?
I'm 87 years old.
I thought we were going to get some clarity finally.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the story. Yeah.
I was thinking something totally different. I was thinking about Walter's performance in that scene where he's about to kill Kirk. And there was a joy that came over you when you were about to kill him. And I was thinking, boy, you really got your opportunity in this episode to sneak up behind him. And I felt the joy inside of you that I was like, oh, you can't wait to do it. So that wasn't much acting there, was it?
Just for the record, guys, when I was doing the series, I was so grateful to be working. And having a place to go every week or almost every week, that I did not take umbrage with with Bill's behavior. For one thing, he was funny. He was he made us all laugh, and he was funny frequently. I mean, on purpose. If he blew a line, he dealt with it in a funny way. And after all, I had just come aboard, and I was the new kid, and I was just grateful that that most weeks they found a few speeches for me to say. So I didn't start really getting distressed until we started making the movies. I don't think. I mean, maybe in retrospect, after the series ended, I was wondering, gee, it would have been nice if I had had an opportunity to do more, because I certainly felt I could do more. But there was no bitterness in my perception of things. I was just glad to be there. And if Mr. Shatner chose to ignore me, that was okay. I accepted that as the game plan, as the way things were. I didn't take it personally.
So, Walter, you mentioned Shatner made you laugh a bunch of times. Can you tell us the time he made you laugh the hardest? Right after this break, everybody.
Yeah.
So we will be right back. We're going to cover all that and this episode on the other side. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Walter Koenig.
Hello.
Здравствуйте, товарищи. Как вы делаете?
That's right. The forever young Walter Koenig. That's what he said. He said, call me forever young Walter, or I'm out of here. Punk. Okay, here are the trivioids of the week, or the month in this case. Bones says everything's all messed up, changed around, out of place. Dr. McCoy, who's also Bones, spilled acid on a table a year ago, and the spot is still there, although everybody in the comments below let us know if that is accurate. Spock has a beard, suddenly. Sulu has a facial scar, suddenly. Spock wants to destroy the Hulkins. No one will question the assassination of a captain who has disobeyed prime orders of the Empire. Kirk ascended to captaincy by assassinating Captain Christopher Pike. Commander Kenner will take Marlena temporarily. He's made that quite clear. Captain Kirk smashes Spock's skull with another skull. Is that a mind meld? It's far easier for civilized men to behave like barbarians than for barbarians to behave like civilized men. And Lieutenant Marlena Moreau was just assigned last week. All right. So, Walter, what do you remember about the time William Shatner made you laugh so hard? I don't know how to finish that sentence.
Well, Bill was fun. He was really the source of a lot of humor on the TV series. He didn't have to take himself so seriously because everybody bought into it. He didn't have to fight to be the principal performer. Everybody just knew it. And when you're comfortable with your position, when you know the world is bowing to you as you walk by, then I think your temperament is probably more congenial. We all blew lines, everybody blew lines. It's what happens, and Bill had a moment when he blew his line, and he blew it about literally 10 times in a row. It was hysterical. He kept saying the wrong word.
Was it self-sealing stem bolt?
No, it wasn't.
What?
No.
That's Cirroc and Aaron had a scene where they had to talk about self-sealing, and we
blew lines before.
Was it 19
I think we did
takes
25 takes,
Oh,
20 some takes, 20 takes, something ridiculous. Blowing lines and laughing. But back to your story, Walter.
Well, no, that's pretty much it. The word was supposed to be something like, "This is not it." But it was something like Paris, and he kept saying "parrot," time after time, and we were all hysterical. We were all falling on the floor, including Bill. He thought it was funny as well. So, yeah, there was a lot of fun. Now, I know, because I had heard, nobody told me specifically, that there was some conflict between Bill and Leonard over, their contributions to the episode. Bill was signed on to be the star, the principal star, and the credits so presented. And Leonard had this extraordinary following that I don't think was anticipated to the degree that it occurred. So Bill evidently was doing some politicizing behind the camera. I know of one occasion where he drove his motorcycle up to one of the houses of the writers and asked them to add more lines because Leonard had more lines in the episode indeed.
Jeez.
Yeah. I'm not going to go into that any further, but yeah. So there was a lot of fun, and Bill was the source. Who was the initiating source of that?
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what episode it was that? Sorry, do you remember what episode it was that you guys were laughing so much that Bill couldn't get the word?
No, I wish I did. I don't.
And what were you saying, Cirroc? Sorry.
I was saying this episode looked like fun. And I think you mentioned earlier about Sulu's character really getting a chance to really play outside of himself and getting some really good moments on screen. I felt I even wrote in my notes, I kind of like evil Sulu because he got a chance to just play with that character. And also Nichelle Nichols did a great job as Uhura, I thought. And playing her character, she played moments where she was scared. She played moments where she was being coy and manipulative. And I thought she hit all of those notes really well in this episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you felt the same thing. I mean, it was just, and also she looked really beautiful in that mirror universe costume.
You betcha. You betcha.
That bracelet she had on her arm, the little golden snake bracelet. She had jewelry on her fingers, and it just was. And the mini skirt, kind of crop top outfit, just looked stunning on her. So she killed her performance in this episode. I didn't want this episode to end, Walter. I was watching this, and I just felt like they could have made this a two-parter for me. This could have been, I would have gladly seen this whole episode just take place in the mirror universe like it did, and then a whole nother episode of the other mirror people on the actual Enterprise, and that kind of episode could have played out for me as well. Because I was just eating all of this stuff up. I liked this episode. I thought it was good science fiction. I thought, the idea of parallel universe, this is a new thing at the time, in 1967, talking about parallel universes and things of that nature. Even now, they're still kind of controversial scientifically. So I thought that was great. Just in general, Kirk looked like a real leader to me in this episode. So another thing that I like when writers do is when they write the captain to look like a great leader and somebody who has a sense of morality. Kirk in this episode is given that he's written in a way in which makes him look like he's willing to do anything not to kill these people, including sacrifice himself in certain situations. He's willing to be the person that stays behind and beam up the other guys at the end of the episode. So he's willing to take a hit in that way. And when you write your captain, you got to write your captain in these kinds of ways. You have to make them look like a heroic person who stands on principle. And I think they did a good job of writing this episode to put Kirk in that kind of a light.
And this is something that I've said before. Bill is a good enough actor that he can play these different dimensions, that he can be the good guy, the bad guy, and you buy it because he is a very proficient actor. The only I know what I was going to say. When I first started watching it and taking notes yesterday, I was looking for the illogic. I was saying, okay, where have they gone wrong? And the first time around, I said, oh, God, this is not consistent. This is not consistent. Then I watched it a second time. I said, it all works. Who am I to criticize the logic of an episode without really getting what the hell's going on? I mean, an opposite universe, a whole different way of living is a very complicated issue. And to keep it consistent and and make it possible for us to follow is, there must have been a lot of story discussion on that. And I thought they covered all the points. I didn't think there was anything that, considering the circumstances and the fact that we had two totally different universes going on, I thought they did a really, really good job of maintaining a consistency on each universe. The only thing that I take exception to, and it's really kind of, I don't know, not petty, but there's some word that should come to mind that isn't, are the fights. The fights I thought were not very convincing. The fights were pushing. They were pushing
and
each
grabbing.
We'll watch it again.
Yeah. I watched it like 5 times because what I noticed was the stunt doubles very strongly.
What?
Yeah, like Leonard's stunt double didn't even have like the hair forward thing. His hair was like all up and curly. I mean, it looked it was amazing. I actually wanted to ask you about that, Walter. Do you remember the stunt doubles for your show?
Well, watching the episode, gentlemen, my sense is there weren't any stunt doubles. I mean, you get a push and the guy goes flying across the room. There was there wasn't a lot of impact with this stuff. My feeling was maybe in some of the long shots there were stunt doubles.
Exactly.
I saw a lot
exactly that.
I saw McCoy and Kirk and Spock fighting. I mean, it was fairly close up. And
right, I'm talking about the melee,
the overhead shot.
Yeah, exactly. Where they pulled back and they did the overhead shot of the melee where Uhura's jumping in and
and that was absurd.
Spock I felt that was absurd. Over
it was absurd. We didn't need
curly
it.
Hair Spock.
They could have put the other scene back, and that scene could have gone out of there.
yeah. And I just thought it was, Uhura attacking this guy, and practically knocking him down. I'm sorry if I sound sexist, but I just didn't buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to talk about too, very quickly, was Cirroc. You mentioned you thought it could have been 2 episodes. Well, here's something interesting. There's a group called Star Trek Continues. Okay. If you guys have heard of them, they did Star Trek fan films. They did like 11 episodes, I think. Their third one was a direct continuation of this episode. And the reason I mention this is because as I was watching this episode, it reminded me very much of that other one because it was so well done. What it does is it takes place immediately after. So the episode opens with that final lecture from Kirk to Spock, with Kirk saying, Spock, maybe someday you could change the world or whatever he says. That's where the episode starts. Then Kirk and them beam away. And then the Mirror Universe, Kirk and team come back. And so this is where the episode starts. And now it's all about Spock with good guy Kirk's words resonating in his head. He's resisting killing the Hulkins. And he's thinking, maybe I can create a revolution. Maybe I can make a change and make things better. And then evil Kirk's back in action. He's like, all right, let's kill this. So I thought it was a really smart thing and really well done. And I just want to give them a shout out. I got this shirt from that exact episode because I acted in it, by the way. I got
very smart
beat up by Kirk. He did Kirk foo to me. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, shout out to them. It was well done.
The Incredible Hulkins. But yes, I like the line at the end. There was a line where Kirk says, in every revolution, there is one man with a vision, speaking to that line that you're talking about at the end.
Right.
And, I couldn't help but think of Gene Roddenberry as being the man with vision in a kind of revolution as far as television is concerned. So I thought of him in that moment because he had the vision to create this kind of a universe that we're all able to play in and conceptualize around and discuss whether that's logical or illogical or with the consistency of whether you think the facts line up. But it's still a playground in which we all kind of sign up for and say, let's argue the details of this particular universe, which is a parallel universe in itself kind of situation, right? The show itself is a parallel universe of the actual universe in some kind of metaphoric way. But so I did think that that Roddenberry himself is the man who has the vision, and whose vision is being celebrated even to this day. So that was one thing. And the other thing is, there were other things that I walked away with when I heard, for example, terror must be maintained or the empire is doomed. Spock makes it.
Yeah.
And I thought about the reality of that kind of existence too, in which we have powerful controlling entities, governments that have to maintain terror in order for their empire to sustain. And that is a scary thought as well.
We have a candidate who absolutely that's his MO. You know, we have a candidate for president who I believe, and I know this is not the forum for this, but who is who operates under the principle that only if we can scare the population, so badly that they'll do irrational things at the voting booth, can we succeed? And it's so now it's such an, this is 60 years after we shot that episode, and we're still dealing with that.
Still will forever. Fear is the greatest motivator, they say. That's it.
And I also wanted to mention too that even in this parallel universe, the Marlena character who has this visual box that she's able to press a button and make people disappear. So the entire episode was really about preserving life. And, from the beginning, Kirk is like, I'm not going to take it from you. We're not going to kill you. We're just going to, ask you politely for your dilithium. And the entire episode, he's like, don't kill this character. Don't kill this guy. Don't kill this person. He's always trying to, the whole thing is about preserving life, right? Chekov, no, don't kill him. It just is about preserving life. And yet, the only people that do die in this episode are the ones that get disappeared by
Marlena. The Tantalus field, I think it was called Tantalus.
And what color uniforms are they wearing?
And they're wearing, even in the mirror universe, is what I meant. They're still wearing red, and there's some kind of psychology there for us as the audience where we don't care about light as long as they're wearing that red uniform. We're like, oh, that's all right. It's, everybody else's life needs to be saved, but those three guys in the red thing, we'll talk about it later. We'll fill out the report.
It was strange that Sulu's life was spared. Like, why did Marlena kill Sulu's henchman, but not the actual person that was leading the revolt? I didn't.
Good point. I thought of that. Good point.
Do we have
who was also wearing
red,
didn't. By the way? Who was also wearing red? But because he's a main character, that's all I could come up with while I was watching. I was like, well, this is a main character.
But in the mirror universe, he could die in the mirror universe.
We don't know that though. That was another thing. Like, we don't know that the death of your character in the mirror universe doesn't also reflect to your life in the other universe. So that, I think that was
like the Dark
they didn't
Crystal.
want to touch it. They didn't want to touch that particular, I think, topic. I think they didn't want to kill.
There was the movie, Jim Henson and Disney's movie, The Dark Crystal, where it had the Skeksis, and I can't remember what the other guys were called, but there were 7 left, and there were 7 good ones and 7 bad ones. And if one of the good ones died, one of the bad ones died, and vice versa. Really interesting. But Walter, I want to ask you about the agonizer booth. Do you remember the agonizer booth? Because I thought it was great. Not that Chekov was going through agony, but I thought that it was very effective, and your acting was very effective. And it seems like we got cut out that other part of Kirk cradling you and all that. But do you remember that scene? Do you remember doing it? Do you remember any direction you got or what it was about?
Well, I hate to embarrass you, Ryan, in front of me.
I'm used to it.
What?
I'm used to it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Considering we have millions of people watching, I feel uncomfortable criticizing you. That agony booth was real. I was under extraordinary pain. It was, they gave me stun pay to do that.
They're like, we're going to put you through a ton of pain, but you get a 15% bump.
God, I cannot tell you. Moments like that I always found rewarding because it gave me something to do. There was just so many aye, Captain, so that when you go, that was something to do.
Right.
So and like in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, I had something to do. And of course, the reason why they did that, I'm convinced, why they kept writing. People always ask me, why are you the guy that they're always, making to suffer? It's because they have to show the jeopardy, they have to show the pain, and it's less unbecoming to have a younger, less mature officer experience it. It's, if it was Scotty or McCoy, that would suggest that we are not as well trained the crew, that we are not as heroic, that would have that significance. Having the young guy going through all of the agony, is just more acceptable, and he can withstand it. He can survive it. I don't know what the question was, but that's my answer.
Do you think it was also because Chekov seems also like, if he's the youngest, he's the most innocent? Maybe people like it would be most, pardon the pun, but agonizing for people to watch the young, innocent, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, kid being tortured, being injured, being hurt. Do you think it had anything to do with that? And of course, your likability factor was like a 10.
Well, I think that's what I said. They chose the most vulnerable character, vulnerable without being unbecoming. I mean, if you're that young, you really haven't gotten it all together yet. And if anybody was going to express pain and the audience find it understandable, or wouldn't be embarrassed about it, it would be Chekov, because he's so young. 22, sir, although I wasn't 22. So yeah, that's definitely in the mix. And it worked. So, you find something that works, you go back to it.
So now we have Chekov must suffer episodes, like O'Brien must suffer episodes of Deep Space Nine. But guess what? It's time for the home run of the day. Cirroc, who gets the home run of the episode?
Yeah, this is a lot of people get the home run. This is a lot of home runs. I'm gonna say that William Shatner gets the home run for this episode. Carried it pretty well to me. He showed a lot of good subtle leadership moments, and I just thought he played all the beats well. There's a lot of honorary kind of home runs in this, but he will get the main one for me.
What about you, Mr. Chekov?
Well, it's true. People got a chance to step forward in the show, and George, and show what they could do. However, curiously, I have two. Number one was Leonard, because even though I sort of argued the point that the beard made the character different, at the same time, I thought it was so subtle and so nuanced that I could buy that this was a bad guy, but he was also a guy who had a lot of promise and could possibly be, a hero. I didn't find that inconsistent at all. And the other home run is the story. I thought it was just convoluted enough and played with enough authenticity that you didn't feel that it was preposterous. That this crazy idea of an opposite universe and people being the opposite of themselves. I thought that was really well executed. And as I said, my sense is that there were some really interesting story conferences along the way to get it there. So I applaud the story as well.
Cool. I love it. We finally have 3 different home runs. I'm going with Sulu today because I feel like he was the one that had the biggest change, like the most obvious change in his personality. And to be perfectly honest, he really creeped me out when it showed like a close-up and he's like, he just had like these crazy eyes. And I'm like, George, I have never seen this look from you. This is creepy. Uncle George looks scary right now. So I'm going with Sulu or George Takei for his performance in this episode. Very different, very unsettling, which I think was the point. And these are also some people that are unsettling, but in the best way possible. Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Titus Mohler, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Anil O. Polat, Joe Balsarotti, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, my live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allyson Leach-Heid, Julie Manisfee, Greg K. Wickstrom out in Hawaii, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, who I think was actually on set for the filming of this with me as well, Dave Gregory, Tim Baum, Chris Sternett, Christopher D. Marshall, Johanna Yunker, Roy Epen, and of course, Jason Okun. All right, everybody, stick around. We've got the free-for-all. Some of those people we just mentioned will be on the other side. We will see you then. Stick around. We'll be right back on the 7th rule. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th rule. It's time for the free-for-all with Melissa Longo.
Hi.
With Jason M. Okun, of course. Chris McGee's got something interesting behind him, but I don't really know it. And a cool shirt. Faith Howell is also here with a Ferengi behind her. Is that wrong? Yeah. Justin Weir's got a cool shirt on and his Mirror Universe. Uh-oh. It's him. It's Mirror Universe Justin. Carrie Schwent is hanging out with a Mirror Spock shirt. Allyson Leach-Heid is showing off some Abyssinian kiosk gear. And Goldu Scott Jensen is ready to take over the world. What's up, Scott? All right, first things first. Ooh, this one. I've been looking forward to this. I've given away no hints. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Yeah, this is a great episode. I'm going to say this is like a 9.
Wow.
Straight 9.
Wow. That is one of the highest guesses you have ever made. Melissa has a terrible poker face right now. Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know? I think Allyson knows too, based on her reaction.
I'd say it's at least an 8.5.
8.8.
8.2.
Okay, everybody else knows, and they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. It is exactly a 9.0 Cirroc Lofton.
Oh, yes.
You get the Cirroc Lofton Award of the day.
Yes.
Wow.
9.
Everybody knew it was. I was a
Pretty
little
high.
surprised. I was like, 9 is very high for a Star Trek episode. Usually there are a few that pull it back down, but well deserved. Did you guys catch the non-appearance mentions today?
Pike.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, the other one, I have to consult the experts. Do we ever see Captain Kenner?
Who?
No, right? Okay, so he's out then.
No.
All right, Melissa
Mirror
Longo, will you
Universe Pike,
please get us started off on the right track?
Yes, I think this episode definitely deserves a 9. I was entertained the entire time. The the costuming was awesome. The tone of the episode was awesome. There was conflict and urgency and great storytelling and great acting. I loved all of the characters across the board. Everyone who came on screen, I was like, oh, wow, yeah. And then Kirk's Mirror Universe Kirk was pretty fantastic, I have to say. He was pretty fantastic. When he's in the holding cell, he's going crazy, and yeah, it was pretty great. And I love that they introduced dilithium crystals in this episode. How awesome is that? And that it's carried over to Trek today, and that's pretty awesome. Uhura, gosh, she's amazing. I love her. I love her. And then Milena, was that her name? Barbaluna's character? Fantastic as well. I have nothing but good things to say about this episode. I'm loving this first time watch for me of TOS because it's blowing me away with its good storytelling.
I realize that it is not on purpose, but you've omitted George, and I think George certainly.
Oh yes, yeah, okay. George, definitely. Yeah,
okay.
He was fantastic in this scene. This is why I chose this picture, is because it was so good, and the tension between George and Nichelle is wonderful. Yeah. I did not mean to omit him. I did appreciate his performance very much.
It's hard to think straight when you got a cat climbing on you too. Just wrapping herself around. Thanks very much, Melissa Longo. Jason M. Okun. First and foremost, question for you. What did I hear about green uniforms in the past? Weren't the uniforms originally green, and then when they were transferred into color, they went gold? Did I imagine that? That long pause means I did imagine that.
Ryan, I think, and Walter would know this better than I would by all means. I think they may have had a little bit of a greenish tint that showed up yellow on the screen. They weren't completely green.
Yeah.
I think I've seen some material. It did look a little greenish to me, but that could have been, the fact that it was hanging in some closet for 35 years at that point.
Okay. And what did you think of this particular episode, by the way?
Well, I mean, when we say something's a classic, sometimes it's, the term is overused. Here, it certainly is not. And I think, when the show, enters the popular zeitgeist, and here, at least Spock's beard has entered the pop culture zeitgeist, sort of well beyond the show. I mean, it is a classic in every sense of the word. It is perhaps one of the best looking original series episodes. The way the alternate Enterprise was lit was quite a bit darker than I think what Jerry Finnerman did for the kind of a regular Enterprise. And I think, I recommend looking at the Blu-ray version because you can see it a lot better than the streamed version. It's just a wonderful looking episodes. And I can certainly repeat what Melissa said about performances. They're all wonderful. This is also the first episode where we hear Chekov scream.
Yes.
At least alternate Chekov. And it sets the stage for further screaming. And I guess, Walter, it came in the middle of some of the other episodes where you had certainly more to do. It came between the Apple and the Deadly Years.
I just wanted to ask you, because you seem so knowledgeable and you carry yourself with an extraordinary sense of being knowledgeable. I want you to know that. I'm kidding. What was the name of the actor who played the leader on the other planet?
Oh, you mean the leader of the Hawkins?
No.
Yeah, the laughing actor.
Damn. I mean, he did the voice for the Nomad for Nomad, and
oh, really? Well,
Perrin.
it said something.
Yes.
Yeah, Perrin,
Big
right?
Perrin.
But
Yeah.
Walter said
It's
that's
not-
not who he's thinking of.
That's not the actor.
and he's written as having done the voice for it, but and he did the Metron in the first season. I mean,
Okay.
that's definitely him. I mean, it was his voice. It was a little bit altered, I think. You know, they filmed the lady, and
he played a very unlaughing every week. He played a very wimpy guy who would come on and do a 30, 40-second monologue, as I recall, and that was it. But he was part of the cast. He was there every week. Okay, never mind.
Everybody in the comments below, let us know who's the guy Walter's thinking of. We got to figure this out.
He was on laughing. That's the big clue.
That's your big hint. And he played a wimpy guy every week. Somebody that has never played a wimpy guy is the Dark Lord, Chris McGee. What's up, Chris? What do you think of this one?
Yes, well, this is obviously, as has already been mentioned, one of the most recognized, referred to, and popular episodes in Star Trek's history. He created the whole meme of a goatee representing an evil version of a person, even before memes had a name. There's even a rock group called Spock's Beard. That's their logo over my right shoulder there. And of course, yes, it led to the Mirror Universe series of episodes on DS9, and yes, Cirroc, the Intendant. I've mentioned
let the record show that Cirroc went,
I mentioned how a couple of sound bites from our last reviewed episode, The Changeling, were used in a song from one of my favorite 80s groups, Information Society. Well, a few more were lifted from this popular episode and used in several more songs from them. And I probably won't mention Information Society anymore. I just am gushing too much there. But I will mention a couple of little interesting tidbits, maybe even a nitpick. Like, for example, it seems kind of inefficient for each crewman to carry around an agonizer. What's to stop the crewman from accidentally losing their agonizer? Sorry, sir, I must have left it in my quarters. It fell off my belt while I was in the Jeffries tube yesterday and got fried in some circuitry. And if it hasn't already been mentioned, the final scene with Kirk discovering Lieutenant Marlena Moreau was used for the Sisko meets Kirk scene in Trials and Tribulations of DS9. For the memorable quote, oh my gosh, so many memorable quotes in this episode. So I'll pick one of my favorites is, in every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
My favorite quote in this episode is,
Yes. Nailed it.
You still got it.
That was it. Perfect. Print, cut, print.
Yeah.
On to the next.
Like, I'll send you an invoice. All right. Faith Howell is here. What's up, Faith? What did you think of this episode?
So, of course, I love this episode. It set up so many other things in the future, including some of the most fun DS9 episodes. Picture Rom behind me because I was totally channeling Rom watching this episode going, but if it's alternate, shouldn't the Vulcan other planet be more militant rather than super peaceful the way they were in our universe? So that was me watching through this whole episode. I definitely noticed a very cute young Chekov at his station at the beginning, and definitely did not believe that he was alternate at first until we see him in the turbo lift. And so, yeah,
treacherous. So treacherous.
Yeah, it was like watched him push the two buttons at the same time. Went, oh, what's that about? So,
yeah. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Faith Howell. Justin Weir, aka Shag840, is here, and we're so glad that he's back finally. What'd you think of this episode, Mirror Universe, Justin?
I love this episode, and being a Patreon member with you guys and being able to access Walter real time, this is amazing, and everyone should be a part of this. I don't really have much to say. That everyone already said it. The acting was incredible. There's something tempting about the Mirror Universe. Everyone is sexier in the Mirror Universe. They may be evil, but guys and girls, everyone's just looking so good. And this episode still holds up, in my opinion. The fight scenes, the comedy, the action, it's all there. And I do love all the Mirror Universe episodes that we get in the future, even though some of them are kind of cheesy, but I still enjoy all of them. I do love that the goatee, especially in shows like Community. I love Community. It's the dark timeline. This represents evil. But I love this episode, and it's nice to hang out with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Evil Justin Weir, aka Shag 840. Carrie Schwent is here. She's not evil at all, but she is aka Crafty Bear. What do you think of this episode?
Very much chiming in with everybody else. Love the episode. The mirror version of myself is here behind me in the giant action figure set that they have on the cruise that I wore for Mirror Universe night. So I had to include the mirror version of myself. But yeah, absolutely fantastic chiming in on Uhura. She was badass. And the mirror versions of Sulu and Chekov, you had two different flavors of menacing. Sulu's was the sexy menacing, and Walter, you were adorably menacing. I wanted more of that scene in the hallway. Just that grin you had just sent shivers down my spine. I thought it was adorable, but it was adorable, but I was creeped out at the same time. So very, very good job. I'm sad we didn't get that scene wasn't just a little bit longer, just a couple more lines maybe. And the poor thing in the agonizer booth, that could not have been very, very pleasant, even if there is no actual pain there. I guess I can only imagine what that was like to film. Just probably told you to go nuts and just start screaming.
I have a question to ask the whole group. Does anybody remember in that scene where Chekov confronts Kirk and he's beaten down, that Kirk picks him up in his arms? And that wasn't in this episode. Mm. Does anybody remember that? Because I sure as hell do. They edited it out for some reason.
Jason and Allyson usually have scripts, yeah.
Not in this one. I think Kirk picks Chekov up in The Day of the Dove when he completely freaks out and confronts the Klingon woman and tries to basically rape her. And Kirk confronts him, hits him in the face, and Chekov kind of passes out. And I think that's when Kirk carries him off. I think it's The Day of the Dove.
Jason's an encyclopedia.
I apologize.
Yeah. Yep. Same writer.
Probably right. You're probably right. I'm 87 years old.
It was 60 years ago.
Yes, it was 60 years ago.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Jason and Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear. Did you have more, Carrie? I believe you did.
A couple short things. A tidbit that I noticed. The actress playing Marlena, she had strep and 103-degree fever, so they had to postpone her kissing scenes with Kirk for a couple of weeks. And apparently, she lost enough weight that it was visible on camera. So that's why she comes out of that room wearing that beautiful colored drapey sort of fabric. Yeah. I can't imagine trying to work with strep and over 100-degree fever. That could not have been fun. But lastly, I have my haiku for the week. Is sort of the impression that Kirk kind of like what Kirk has that the captain's log where he's talking about how weird things are. This is the haiku version of that. Real, but not quite real. Harsher, more violent, darker. We don't belong here. So
also, you got a cool Mirror Universe pin I didn't notice originally, and you've got it on the correct side, which is on the right side, where comm badges are on the left side in the Prime Universe. Great stuff, Carrie Schwent. Allyson Leach-Heid, you oftentimes have the script. Did it say anything about Chekov saunters in adorably but creepy?
No, I don't have a copy of this script, so I can't confirm or deny if that is in there. It was achieved, so that's cool. Fun episode, always great to watch. I love that um, Spock's goatee has its own musical cue repeatedly in the first couple of times we see it. I'm like, yes, I love this. Love the music in this episode, which is kind of reworked from Balance of Terror, which is cool. That was great music in that episode too. So using it as the theme for the Empire works. So I love that. Weird thing, this is the only time we see Uhura in a moving turbo lift in the entire series. She's got one episode in a turbo lift.
Whoa.
So that's just random. And I don't know if you guys talked about this earlier, but navals were not particularly allowed on TV at the time. And the way they got around this was when the censors were there to watch filming, they put them on a long lunch and shot Uhura and Marlena's scenes so they could have their navals out.
Well,
Wow.
what's a naval?
Belly
Is that the
button.
midship? That's what I thought. Okay.
Belly button.
Also, Uhura takes the steps. That's why her legs are so great.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And this episode won a Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. So it's gotten its flowers ever since it came out, and it's well-deserved.
Mm-hmm. And let's see if I can share this. Jason M. Okun shows us something cool here. Can you guys see that?
That's it. That's it.
That's the Day of the Dove.
But that's the wrong episode, right?
Yeah, you can see the polyester shirts. These are not velour shirts, third season shirts.
So, okay. My apologies. I
Wow,
was
good
once again
knowledge.
wrong.
Yeah.
Good stuff, everybody.
But that's what I remembered. It's curious.
Mhm.
And that was Day of the Dove?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
All right, Goldu Scott Jensen is here. What's up, Scott? What'd you think of this one?
How you doing? Could again echo everything that everyone else has echoed, and we've all echoed each other. But I don't know if you guys touched on the writing at all for this one. It was
Not
by
really.
Jerome Bigsby. He eventually does also write Day of the Dove as well. So it's the same writer as this, which I think is pretty cool that we made that connection. He did 2 other episodes by any other name. He wrote the teleplay for, and then Requiem for Methuselah, which is one of the coolest titles in sci-fi history ever. Just for that. But I thought he was a really cool guy. He wrote a lot of pulp stories and stuff that were throughout like Galaxy Magazine, Amazing Stories and stuff like that. He's just got a ton of really great writing. And then also to connect him in a Kevin Bacon manner to Deep Space Nine, he wrote a Twilight Zone episode that's incredibly famous too. It was called It's a Good Life. It was the one with the scary little boy that had the psychic powers and kept everybody afraid in town of him.
Moomy.
And
You're
yeah,
a
that
bad
was,
man. You're a very
You're a bad man.
yeah, so good. Yeah, he wrote that too. And that was Billy Mummy that played that little boy who was also, obviously in Lost in Space, which we know from. And then eventually in the Siege of AR 558 as well. And Deep Space Nine, which is all
Strange New
connected
Worlds.
Babylon
all the way
5.
across as well. Yes, all across the board. So this is all interconnected
Wow.
behind the scenes as well.
The
So, yeah,
tapestry.
I definitely have to shout out the amazing classic writing in this because Jerome Bixby is, I don't say he's an unsung hero, but I don't think he's sung enough. He's an amazing writer. So definitely loved that.
Wasn't he also a character in Deep Space Nine, like the mobster or something?
Yes, I swear he was Bixby was the name of the mob dude.
Who's the guy I'm thinking
Might have
of?
gave
Bixby,
him the name as a
right?
tribute.
I think you're
Bigby.
totally wrong, Ryan. And if you're not positive about what you believe, you should probably
I just
repress.
Here I can agree
impulse.
with Ryan.
Yeah.
You guys know,
Recognizer, please.
like, remember
By
with
Walter.
TJ.
the Chester cat? Chester
Yeah, that was
the
Bigby,
cat.
I think.
That's
Oh,
Bilby.
Bixby.
Bilby.
That's
Yeah.
Bilby.
Bilby Bixby and Bilby.
Okay,
Okay.
good enough.
Bilbo Baggins.
Also, very quickly, I Googled, sometimes I just got to Google things. It says, although it's tough to see in the series itself, in the pilot, you can see the famous gold uniforms were actually lime green. They only appeared gold under studio lighting. So it was something about the lighting that made it look gold instead of lime green.
Wow.
Anyway, Jake's final take.
One, I'm going to nominate Jason for our ship computer. So you got my vote. You got my vote.
I second that.
Yeah.
It's called wasted youth. That's what it's called.
Yeah, no, we love it. We love it. I also wanted to highlight the moment where Uhura's taking that pistol away from Marlena. I just like the moment. She's like, I wanted to see her take her earrings out. Like, no, this bitch is about to, hold on a second. No. Because I just felt like that was the moment. That was the look she was giving her. I'm like, are you really trying to pull your gun out on my captain? Not in front of me. That's not even about to happen. So I love that. I also thought it was funny because Scotty's telling Kirk, he's like, Captain, there's a small window. There's only 10 minutes. And then Marlena comes out in a nightgown. And he's like, give me 15 minutes. I'll be right back to you. He's like, I need some more time. I need more time. Because he gets into that little slow motion. But also the agonizer. Yeah, I think the agonizer is all those conversations you had with your mom when she says we're gonna have to talk, or your spouse when there's that we need to talk moment. That's what's happening there in the agonizer. And then last but not least, I just wanted to I wanted to say I like the jewelry a lot too. Just they put a lot of like accentuation with the jewelry. I think Marlena was wearing a big old pinky ring that just caught my eyes. I was wondering what the hell is that ring? It was so big. And then also Uhura's bracelet that she wore on her arm sleeve. I really like that snake kind of wrapped around her, her upper arm there. It looked really cool. Yeah, I thought this was just a really home run episode all the way around the board. Just great sci-fi for me. I could have used a whole another hour of it because I just didn't want to tune away from it. It was just really that good. And then the last thing I would say is just shout out to, I think it's Snow White that says mirror, mirror on the wall. I think that's the first time I've ever heard of mirror, mirror used in a sentence together. And I do believe that predates this particular episode, but
very good.
Yeah, that's my final take.
That's the first shout out to Snow White we've had in 5 years. Walter, any final thoughts on this episode?
Well, the comment was made about Uhura taking away the weapon. Now, when we were talking just ourselves, I said that I was uncomfortable with all of the fight scenes. I thought that they were all very artificial, that there was no punches, there were pushes, and pushes that threw people across the room. And it was just, to me, they should have had stunt actors and not the real actors doing that fight. I thought Uhura grabbing the weapon was the one really difficult moment to buy. It was for me. I just didn't think it worked at all. Other than that, I loved it.
Hey, that's why it's a 9 and not a 10, I guess. All right, good stuff. Thank you, Walter. And that's it for us, everybody. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate it. That's it for us. We will see you soon. Thank you so much to Scott, Allison, Carrie, Justin, aka Shag840, Faith, Chris, Jason, Melissa, for myself, Cirroc, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg, Walter Koenig, and Melissa Longo. Thank you all for joining us. And until next time, always remember the 7th rule.